of Sherwood Park, Alberta. Hear the latest information from the world of radio, locally and internationally, each week on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM here in the city of Montreal. My name's Sheldon. Jill is with me, and we thank you for joining us. It is Sunday, February the 27th. Wherever you may be, we thank you for tuning in. And we love to hear from you. If you have any questions for us, you can always reach us by email, radioreport@yahoo.com. We have our show live streaming at ckut.ca. It is also archived there. We have a really neat Facebook page. It's a group actually called International Radio Report. We welcome a bunch of new members this week. We have Paul, we have Ian, we have Akaninyen, we have Christian and Greg joining us, putting us up to 726 members, I think it is. And we also have a YouTube channel, which is also extremely popular. You can go to the YouTube channel and hear any of our shows posted there, including the most recent one right after it airs on CKUT. So look for International Radio Report on YouTube. So we have obviously a lot of news coming up about the situation in Ukraine. We'll get to that very, very shortly. We do want to start off, though, with giving you a final reminder. If you have not yet registered for the 35th Annual NASWA Winter SWL Festival, stop what you're doing after our show, of course, and go register. If you're into radio of all kinds, you want to be at this event. It is a virtual event on Zoom. It is taking place March the 4th and the 5th. You can get all of the detailed information, a schedule of events and activities, swlfest.com. If you've never been to it before, you've only missed 34 of them, one a year. So definitely get to this one. Lots of great information being passed in the sessions and the forums going on. Lots of events. We'll have a hospitality suite open virtually throughout the weekend that our CIDX club is hosting. And all of this will only cost you $10. You don't have to be there for the whole weekend. You can pop in and out whenever you like, so you're not tied down for the whole weekend if you have other things going on. But we highly recommend participating. You do need to register online, a $10 fee. So do check it out. We hope to see many of you there next Friday and Saturday, March the 4th and the 5th. And it gets underway at 1 o'clock Eastern in the afternoon on Friday. SWLFEST, swlfest.com is the place you need to go. So we mentioned Ukraine, of course, and really disturbing events going on there in the last week. We have a lot of information to pass along to you, starting first with something coming from the independent newspaper in Kyiv. Ukraine imposes state of emergency. Now, this story, we're going to sort of progress as the week has gone by here. This was one of the first notices that came out. Ukraine declared a state of emergency in all of Ukraine except for the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. And that started on the 24th of February. Restrictions introduced by the state of emergency are due to last 30 days. Well, I think that's going to be lasting a lot longer than 30 days, depending on the region. The state of emergency allows the authorities to temporarily limit the public's constitutional rights. The decree greenlights the following measures. We didn't list out all of them, but two that are of particular interest. A ban on producing and spreading information that may destabilize the situation, and a ban on amateur radio transmitting devices. This is something that I guess is not a huge surprise, but there will be all sorts of communications going on. But official statement is that they do not want amateur radio operators operating at this time. So we'll see if that actually comes to light or not. There's already been some reports of some pirate radio activity going on. So we'll have to just keep our ears open over the next however long this carries on, to see what the radio situation is in the country.
Yeah, and see an increase also in any type of broadcasting that could pop up over radio and shortwave. And talking of increase in what's happening on shortwave, WRMI is resuming the broadcast of Radio Ukraine International. This is via the shortwave listening post by Paul Walker. So due to the increased interest in current situation in Ukraine, WRMI has resumed its relays of the daily English language broadcast of Radio Ukraine International, the official overseas service of Ukrainian radio. So you can listen to them on every day except Friday. So it's a daily broadcast except Fridays at 12 to 12:30 UTC on 5010 kilohertz. So that's coming from WRMI. Listen as much as you can, because you never know when that can actually disappear from the airwaves.
Now, I think they may be extending that to 1300, though. I think I saw something about that possibly circulating. I didn't confirm it, but and they're also there was a report from WRMI that they're negotiating to possibly have additional transmissions on WRMI.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be very, very good. But keep a watch on WRMI to see if there is actually an increase. If we see anything, we'll get it up to you on our Facebook group. There's some information from Zach Liang via Glenn Hauser's World of Radio from Ukraine Info, non-SWL information, but HAM HF Emcomm related. Message forwarded as approved by the SP5 MASR coordinator, SQ5T, in cooperation with Emcomm Nets from bordering regions of Ukraine. Dear HAM operators, in the face of the latest threats in our region and a possibility of an incoming wave of refugees, with over 2 million already living in Poland, we would like to remind you that we are at your disposal. If you're a licensed amateur radio operator, you can send information by email to your relatives in Poland or emergency services via the WinLink system, which works on HF bands, independently of access to the local ICT infrastructure. It's winlink.org/WinLink Express. We advise you to download the software, install it, and check its operation. Now, there are Polish WinLink nodes are operating on 160, 80, and 20 meters, and they've supplied the frequencies SR5 WLK 3595.5 kilohertz upper sideband, SR3 WLK 14111 kilohertz USB, and SP1 IEW 1865 kilohertz USB. If we receive information about the cutoff of the internet in the region being in danger, various hams from Emcomm Nets will be operating daily as SP0 MASR from 1800 to 2000 UTC on the frequencies 3770, 7110. In such a situation, please communicate in Polish or in English. We are here to serve you. And this comes from Miles Muslowski, SQ5 Echo Bravo Mike in Poland.
So this is nice to see that amateur radio is there to help in relaying communications. NPR ramping up Ukraine coverage. This is via Radio Inc. So the National Public Radio is adding staff and resources to cover Russia's aggression into Ukraine with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. CPB approved $500,000 in emergency funding to support NPR coverage in the region on Tuesday. We are grateful for CPB's support of NPR's ongoing coverage of the crisis in Ukraine and the surrounding region, one of the most complex and consequential stories of our time, says John Lansing, President and CEO of NPR. Our job is to bear witness for our audiences and for history. Thanks to this generous grant, NPR will be able to report on what's happening, providing fact-based accounts around events and their repercussions for people in Ukraine and in the U.S. This coverage extends across the newsroom, from the international desk to our national security and White House teams, serving all platforms, including newscasts, shows, podcasts, digital, and social media platforms. As Russia accelerates its use of misinformation and disinformation in its invasion of democratic Ukraine, CPB is proud to support NPR reporters in their difficult and potentially dangerous work in bringing fact-based news and information to audiences in the United States and around the world, says Patricia Arrison, President and CEO of CPB. NPR, which has reporters on the ground in Ukraine since January, will use the funds to pay for increased staff in Ukraine and for security and travel to the region, as it reports on the growing political, economic, and military conflict. So this is really good news to see that they're going to increase their coverage, and it's really, really nice to have that. If you have an HD radio also, don't hesitate to turn that HD radio on an NPR station, as most of them carry the BBC 24-hour feed also on HD, which I've been listening extensively last night. It was quite interesting.
So there's a lot of other information. You've gathered up some material from different sources that you wanted to share with our listeners.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening, and your shortwave radio is really a window to the world and to what's happening, particularly right now with Russia and Ukraine. One of the things I wanted to mention is a few BBC frequencies that are particularly good here in North America, even though they don't have a North American service anymore. 18 to 21 UTC, 11810 and 12095 are pretty good to the East Coast. If you listen in a little later in the day for North America, that's 05 UTC 6195 from Ascension Islands is actually very good and easy to listen to. So there's a lot of coverage from the BBC on what's happening in Ukraine. There's also a lot of interesting military communications. One that's been reported a lot, and it has to do apparently with the Russian Air Force. 8131 kilohertz upper sideband, lots of communications there. Especially if you're in Europe, it's going to be easier to listen to, but try it here. You never know. And lots of Navy and Marine stations from Russia and Ukraine, apparently on, I would say, scan 5,000 to 5,500 kilohertz. Lots of communication frequencies there. Some that I've seen reported, and quite a few, like 5330, which is known as a amateur frequency also because it's shared as some Russian Navy, apparently, that's been heard in Europe. Of course, a lot of the communications are in Russian, so you might need to brush up on your Russian if you want to understand it. But lots of interesting communications, and tune the frequency ranges of shortwave, because there must be an increase in communications of all sorts across the spectrum to listen to. And I think it's going to be interesting to also listen to other broadcasters, see what they have to say, different stations. I know Radio Romania has had quite a lot of info on what's happening in Ukraine also. See the different viewpoints of the different broadcasters out there.
Yeah, I think it's important to get as much information from as many different sources as you can.
Yep.
And certainly tuning across the spectrum. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of activity from other countries as well. We're seeing a dramatic increase in the U.S. Air Force communications, military communications. There are troops being moved around the planet right now to different locations and what have you. So there's plenty out there for you to check out on your radio. And definitely use the SDRs online, to get to some of the more localized broadcasts that just might not make it to us here in North America. But we have those tools out there now, so make use of them. It's a great opportunity that we have right now to be able to sort of be in other places virtually and listen to radio from those parts of the world.
Yeah, one particularly the University of 20 SDR. Is a good one because it has a very high limit of a number of users, so it doesn't have the problems of some of the SDRs close to the region that are often unavailable because they are maxed out. So, and it's very sensitive. It's like well placed. It's sensitive, and you could hear a lot from just that SDR online. So, what's been happening with our sun? Well, it's been rather quiet. We were actually waiting for the sunspot that created such a huge flare last week. And when it appeared on the solar disk, well, two little sunspots that seemed pretty inoffensive, and they didn't really do anything special this week, so probably they were decaying and was probably much bigger before. Nothing major this week. It's rather quiet. The sun didn't have, they had some spots that didn't create any flares really. So conditions were quiet in general. There was a little bit of unsettled conditions with some solar wind, but overall not too bad of conditions. The solar flux is around 92. The K index around 1 as we're recording the show. There is a coronal hole that will actually send some solar wind that could reach our planet on February 28th or March the 1st. That could, of course, create unsettled conditions. But overall, probably will have quiet conditions as there's only 2 sunspot groups right now on the solar disk, sunspot number of 23. And, of course, it's the time to turn on that radio and try to get a lot of communications. But for that, you got to turn it on and listen.
I'm Brian Penny of Brewster, Massachusetts. You're tuned to the International Radio Report. 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT, 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Now, we have this is an interesting development. WBCQ, there's always things going on at WBCQ, and there's some big news. They've been testing for a while on a new frequency of 4790, and now we have some news about what they're going to be using it for.
Yep, 4790 has been testing in the past few weeks, and I've monitored quite a few times. Usually gives a good signal here in Montreal. So WBCQ will have a new Radio Angela service on 4790, and that will begin next week via the shortwave listening post. WBCQ's new Radio Angela service on 4790 kHz, which has been propagation testing during February, will begin its regular broadcast schedule on March the 1st. That is going to be February 28th in the evening because it's UTC. They will be using the nightly hours of 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time to midnight Eastern U.S. time, which is 03 to 05 UTC. That 2-hour block will feature music and radio theater programs from around the world, several of which are appearing for the very first time anywhere. The full schedule will be published on the WBCQ website and various other places in cyberspace within a few days. The March schedule will have a few repeat slots as a second wave of new programs prepares for April rollouts. On February 28th, world date from 03 to 05 UTC, U.S. time, and date February 27th, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern, a 2-hour special program, A Taste of Radio Angela, will be presented featuring clips from various programs that will be part of the service. The special 2-hour broadcast block on 4790 kHz is sponsored by Angela and Alan Wiener and curated by Uncle Bill Tilford, who also hosts 3 of the programs. Propagation testing during February has demonstrated that reception is mostly favorable in Eastern and Central North America from 7 p.m. Eastern U.S. onward, And although the signal is aimed southwest from the transmitter in Monticello, Maine, it also lands very well in parts of Europe, especially parts of Ireland, Portugal, Germany, and Italy, but also in several other countries to a lesser extent. Airtime will be available for purchase outside of the 10 p.m. to midnight program block, with priority given to music, especially but not exclusively new music, and other entertainment or cultural programs that align with Radio Angela's mission to become a stellar entertainment and cultural institution on shortwave. So the inquiries about airtime can be directed to WBCQ at WBCQ.com. So this is going to be very interesting to listen to. And they say watch the March NASWA Journal, Spectrum Monitor, and British DX Communication magazines, and of course this space. And listen to Glenn Hauser's World of Radio for more coverage of Radio Angela. So kind of interesting to see what they want to do with that time slot. And it's going to be a refreshing change from hearing what is mostly on their schedule, a religious broadcasting all day.
Yeah, looks like they're trying to put some sort of entertainment programming together, something a little different, new music, what have you. Sounds like a good plan. We'll see how well it does, how well it propagates to different areas. Pretty wide open frequency range that they've chosen there, so things should work out okay. We'll have to check it out and see what's up with the new programming. Now, have a very strange story, and I really don't understand why somebody would want to be doing this, and they probably shouldn't have decided to do it in the first place, because now they've got themselves in hot water. The story comes from Brianna Malone from YourErie.com. This is Erie, Pennsylvania area. The headline, ham radio operator in Erie charged with broadcasting false weather emergencies. An Erie, Pennsylvania ham operator has been charged with broadcasting false weather emergencies. Richard Wagner, 61, is accused of using radio frequencies to broadcast false weather reports such as tornadoes. He is also accused of making a series of threats to other radio amateurs who asked him to stop spreading the false reports. Wagner is being charged with 11 first-degree misdemeanor counts of bomb threats and terrorist threats. A preliminary hearing has been scheduled for the 3rd of March.
So really, you're going to think that nothing bad's going to happen? I mean, come on.
I don't know. This one totally puzzles me. I don't know. What can I say? It's just a very bizarre story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our next story comes from republicworld.com, and it's regarding radio stations in Afghanistan. Nearly 86 radio stations have shut down in Afghanistan over the last 6 months since the Taliban seized control of the war-torn nation. This came as the UN commemorated the 11th edition of World Radio Day on February the 13th. According to Tolo News, the current political transition in Afghanistan with the collapse of the Republican government has had a significant impact on the radio segment of the Afghan media. Further, media watchdog organizations indicated that financial as well as political difficulties are the primary cause of the Afghan media's demise. As per Tolo News, Radio Jahan is among dozens of radio stations that have stopped broadcasting since August. Mosawar Rasik, the Radio Jahan's head, claimed that Radio Jahan has halted broadcasting for more than 6 months due to severe economic challenges. The head of Zamzama radio station, Shafullah Azizi, has highlighted the fact that approximately 70% of radio stations around the country have shuttered or closed down. Azizi went on to say that in the current circumstances, the factors include economic issues as well as broadcasting programs. On the other hand, the government insisted on collecting taxes from radio stations, the Radio Zama's radio head added. In addition to this, as per statistics, more than 300 different types of media organizations have been shut down since the Taliban surged to power on August the 15th. The head of the Afghan Independent Journalist Association noted that their findings reveal that unless the international community provides financial assistance to the media, most of these radio stations would cease over the next 6 months, signaling a media catastrophe in the nation. Despite the fact that a media instrument has advanced technology in a number of ways, radio remains one of the primary information sources for people in various nations, according to Tolo News. In the year 1926, during the reign of the former Afghan king Amanullah Khan, Afghanistan's first radio station was established. Radio Kabul was the very first station to operate in the city of Kabul. Meanwhile, a media poll indicated that 95% of Afghan journalists had trouble obtaining information and are unable to publish news freely. As per the Kama News, the National Union of Afghan Journalists in Kabul held a press conference on January the 16th to reveal the result of the poll, which was conducted in all 34 provinces of Afghanistan and comprised 500 Afghan journalists.
Well, hard times ahead, for sure. There's the economy that's not working well. So, of course, you need money to operate radio stations and pay staff also at the same time. And you're going to mix in there probably that a lot of the stations the Taliban probably want to have off the air also. So it doesn't look very good right now for radio in Afghanistan.
Yeah, with that combination of them wanting to control certain media, and like you said, the financial situation has not been good in Afghanistan for a very long time. So many of these stations, as the article said, were closed before the takeover as well. Yeah. So it's not strictly related to that takeover.
So there's some upcoming ham radio contests.
We just have a couple for you. The one major one is the Arrl International DX Contest, and I can guarantee you the bands will probably be quite full for this. 000 Zulu March 5th to 2359 Zulu March the 6th. It's organized by the American Radio Relay League. It's 1.8 through 28 megahertz bands, and it is USB, so this one will be very active.
There's SARL HamNet 40 meters simulated emergency contest, 12 Zulu to 14 Zulu March 6th, organized by the South African Radio League. This SSB contest is open to all radio amateurs in South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Mozambique, Lesotho, Mariana Islands, and South African Antarctica. Only contacts with these areas will count. Frequencies 7063 to 7100 and 7130 to 7200 kilohertz in single sideband.
Okay, so there's a couple contests coming up, and of course all the other activity going on the bands. We want to just remind you again of our Facebook group, simply because we're getting so many stories right now, whether it's related to the conflict in Ukraine or other events going on. Some of the articles we're getting are quite long, quite in-depth. They're really interesting and worth getting out to you. So we're going to be putting a lot of information on our Facebook group. So if you are not a subscriber already, we'd really recommend that you join the group. It's easy to do. Go to International Radio Report on Facebook. There's a join this group button there, and you can set up whether you want to just go to the page and read the stories yourself, or if you want to receive messages telling you when there's new information posted up there. So we have a number of different options available to you. So we'll be putting a lot of information up there over the next few weeks at least, and maybe beyond, as we get overloaded with too many stories to be able to get for you on the show itself. So do check that out. And of course, we do hope to see you on next weekend at the 35th Annual Winter Fest, and we will be doing recording our show from Winterfest next Friday. So next Sunday on the air, the following Sunday, you'll be hearing reports from Winterfest, including interviews with some of the participants. So lots of stuff coming up. We thank you for tuning in with us here today, and we hope you'll tune in again next week for the next edition of our show, the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.